Zerica, bless us with your testimony.
All right, so we reached the final destination. I know everybody before me was really great, but now it's you're gonna get the good stuff. I'm just kidding. And Stevie B, who? I mean, who really knows about Stevie? So my name's Erica, and I am an alcoholic, and it's by the grace of God's love and mercy in my life that I'm able to be here today and stand here as a sober woman just for today, and I'm super grateful for that. So it wasn't always that way. My grandfather was born in 19. I'm just kidding. So I'll try to make this as quick as possible. I'll fast forward. So growing up, I had a dad who drank, and he used to powdered goods. My mom was codependent, and she married an abusive stepdad, which I had until I was 15. So I wanted to be perfect, and I got a scholarship, went to college. Didn't have a touch of alcohol or anything ever in my life because I watched my dad abuse it growing up, and I hated it. So I graduated college, started working, moved to South Miami, if you guys are familiar with the area, and I started, after college, dating a bartender, which was one of the best decisions I ever made in my life. And for the bartenders to be able to stay up, they need some powdered goods, and I saw my dad doing that growing up, and I always saw how successful he was in everything, and so I kind of glorified him, and I was like, it can't be that bad. I mean, look at everything that he has, and he parties and does all these things. So I decided it was a good idea, and I started dating this bartender, drinking and using dry goods with him, and it was good for the first 2 years. We had a good time, and then I decided that maybe the illegal stuff wasn't that good, but alcohol could stay. So I switched it out for espressos. I didn't go to a bar unless they had a coffee machine or Red Bulls, and that worked out pretty well for a little while. After that bartender, I met my daughter's father at a bar, Woodham. I don't know if you guys are familiar. He was down here from Jacksonville, and I was, we fell in love, right? Like everybody says up here, oh, we fell in love. And the relationship was for a year. I was traveling up there, he was traveling down here. I was like 6 months. And then I moved up there with him. And about a year later, I got pregnant with my daughter. And that was an unplanned pregnancy. I was actually on birth control at the time too, so. And he wanted, after about 4 months, he decided he wasn't ready to be a father. So then I told him, he's like, let's take care of it. And I said, yeah, absolutely, let's take care of it. He left on a work trip, and he went on a work trip, and the day that he left on the work trip, I decided to come and back down to Miami without telling him that I was moving back. I was like, I'm gonna do this on my own, nobody's gonna tell me what to do. So that's what I did. I came back down to Miami, and I decided to be a single mom. And I had her, and she's the most incredible thing that's ever happened to me in my entire life, like many other women that have spoken up here before me. I named her Grace when she was born, having no idea what that name would symbolize later on in the future for me. And then I started drinking again, and it wasn't the same anymore. It wasn't fun anymore. I was home, I was drinking alone. When she would fall asleep at night, I would even go as far as to leaving to get more alcohol. It was just so many things that are just so terribly, it's just horrible things. Then a couple of months after she was born, I decided, there's something not right here, and I was wondering, I wonder if Alcoholics Anonymous really does exist, and I Googled it, or whatever there was at that time. And lo and behold, it did exist. So my first, I went to a meeting, and I was like, I'm gonna do everything I need to do, and it wasn't coming from the heart, but I figured I'm gonna fake it so you can make it. And for the first 6 months, everything was great. I did my 4th step, then my sponsor at the time shredded the 4th step because I missed 2 parts of it. She told me to start all over again. And I told her she was out of her damn mind. And I was like, I'm not following. You people are nuts. I've never been arrested. I've never had to, prostitute myself or anything. These are all the not yets. So I qualified myself right out of the program. And I decided I could do this on my own. When I was sober for, the time that I was pregnant with my daughter, then I stayed sober that entire time until the day before I turned a year. And I said, definitely, I over-exaggerated this whole thing. I'm not an alcoholic. Everything's fine. So I started drinking again. then then I knew that, I was in and out for the next 3.5 years. And it was such a painful time because at that point, I couldn't put down the drink anymore. So I would stay sober for about 3 months, pick up again. Stay sober for 4 months, pick up again. Stay sober, and on it went like that. And all the not yet started happening. So my first arrest was at the Clevelander Hotel. I had drank like 4 Cala cabs, and I had my daughter in a stroller. Apparently that is not allowed, even if you're trying to get a hotel room. So I was apprehended there at the front desk. And I asked the cop, I was like, am I getting a DUI? He's like, no, you're not driving. So I thought it was a great opportunity. I thought it was a great opportunity to get back at my dad for all those years that he made me upset. So when he went to go pick up my daughter at the police station in Miami Beach, I was like, yeah, I'm giving it to him, And it was just horrible. It was just whatever, So then after that, I did classes that they make you do, and once the pain subsides, you start forgetting, And then I started drinking again. And after my year of classes and stuff. And then Mother's Day comes, and I have a couple of glasses of wine during lunch with a friend of mine, me and her daughter. And luckily, my daughter decides to go in the car with them when we left the restaurant, and I get what should have been my first DUI. I got a reckless driving because I did the back on track program. I did what I had to do with that. Then soon after, I started drinking again. That was my second arrest. Then I come up on my third arrest. This one was actually a DUI. That was, and then I decided, okay, well, after all this, and this is me in and out of the rooms, And I decided after all this, I'm like, well, maybe I really can drink and drive, So then I started drinking at home. I made sure I had the exact amount that I need, which I figured out. Everything that I needed, I would be home. There was one day that I decided to go to my attorney's office. I'm creating this business for a physician. I was staffing physicians. I was doing really well with that, so I left the company I was with, and I decided I was going to create my own company. And I had a really eventful day. I went to my attorney, and we were setting everything up for the company. I come home, pick up my daughter early, and I decided I'm going to have some celebratory drinks. And my boyfriend was a firefighter at the time, and he was working, so it was perfect. He was going to be gone for about 48 hours. I had just enough time to do what I wanted to do. I had a couple of drinks, and my daughter decides she wants some French fries and fried, chicken fried rice or whatever. And I'm like an exceptional cook, still am to this day. But I was frying. So she had taken a shower, put her in the room, I was cooking. Then I step outside to go to the car to get some things that I was working over because I thought I was going to work from home. And when I get back to the apartment, the kitchen it's already ablaze because the oil went over. And immediately, and I'm living with a firefighter, and there was no smoke alarm because he hated the noise. One night, I remember the battery, he was like, oh, and he ripped it out. He was an alcoholic too. He is an alcoholic. And I immediately throw water onto this grease fire. And that was an explosion. Yeah, I had no idea. That went from 0 to like 1 million in a second. The fact that my face didn't get burned is just one of the first miracles. The way that the structure of where we lived, the fire created a barrier, so I was separated from my daughter. She was on one side and I was on the other side. So I'm running in and out, screaming for help, and she's screaming, and I'm able to hear her, but I can't see anything. It's 8 o'clock at night. I don't know if anybody's experienced a fire that's been in here, but it was pure black smoke. Couldn't see anything. I couldn't get to her. People think, oh, when you're in a fire, you're gonna just go run through the fire, get to your kid. That's not the way it is. We never know how we're gonna react in situations. I found out through therapy that I actually take flight. I always thought that I was like this major fighter, but I actually, when things get tough, I take flight. I go in survival mode and I take flight. My daughter went from treacherous screams to complete silence. So I immediately, my brain, she's dead. She died. And there's something that happens to the brain when a very traumatic experience happens. There was like a switch that went off, and I took flight that night. I left. by foot, barefoot, and I'm a person that will not walk in my house without slippers. And I went barefoot, running in the streets of Miami for about 2 hours. And then I got to a friend's house, he's an anesthesiologist, and I had another friend that had just died the month before because he committed suicide, that was an anesthesiologist too. My plan was that I was gonna get there, and I was gonna take the pills because he would party, so that way I could just die, kill myself, because the pain was so great, I couldn't stand the pain. It was just too painful to think that my daughter had died, and there was nothing I could do about it. So I got there and I told him, I was like, oh, look, Grace just died, I need to take a nap. And he looks at me with his face like, what is it, call your mom? And I was like, no, I'm not gonna call my mom. My mom didn't have a good relationship. And he goes, call your mom and I'll let you take a nap. And I said, okay. So I call her, and it already had been about 2 hours later, and I call her and I tell her what happened. She goes, Erica, I'm here at the hospital with Grace. She's here, she's fine. And I was like, there's no way. There's absolutely no way that she's alive and that she's okay. And then I said, okay, well this kid is full of bandages. Like she must have like fire, like she must be burned everywhere. And then I said, put somebody else on. They didn't trust my mom. I was like, put somebody else on the phone. They put a doctor or a nurse on the phone. And I said, what does she look like? And they described her. I was like, somebody's showing them a picture. Like there's no way that, that nothing happened. And then I go, ask her what her mother calls her. Nobody would have known this that was there. And then they got back on the phone and she said that you call her Muka, which I haven't called her that again since the incident. The minute they said that, I immediately dropped the phone on the floor. I was like, take me to the fucking hospital. And I'm sorry, I know this is a church, but I'm like, take me to the fucking hospital right now. And we did. We got there was a bunch of cops up front. At this point, this had made it all over the news. This was like the 7 o'clock news. It made it to Australia, to the United Kingdom. I mean, this was like everywhere. This was the young Miami mother who purposely tried to kill her daughter in a blaze. That's what the headlines read. And when I tell you guys, when there's stuff like that about you on the news, that people are able to say whatever it is that they want to say, and you can't. There's not a damn thing you can do about it. That is powerlessness, like huge, I get there, the lead investigating officer was a female, and there was a bunch of other men that were there. And I looked at her and I said, please, let me just see her. Let me just look at her. And they said, okay, no problem. So they took me upstairs. I walk into the room, and it's like I was looking at like this angel. She was sitting under the light. Her hair, so my daughter's hair when she was smaller, she was like blonde. She had blonde hair. And it was her little Shirley Temple pearls and everything in the light. I mean, her little pink skin. I mean, she was just perfect. And if you would have seen the scene that I saw, and then seen her at the hospital, without a question of a doubt, you know for a fact that Jesus Christ exists. And I knew for a fact that so I was raised Catholic, and so I had a sense of a relationship with God, but I knew for any doubt in my mind that had existed prior to that, and I wanted to read something on here. Anything doubts that I had before that were completely erased, because I knew for a fact that there was someone else in that fire with us that was able to save my daughter. Because if things worked out the way they were supposed to work out that day, Grace would have been dead that day. And it's just, there was miracle after miracle that happened after that day. So I was able to see her, everything was perfect. They took me into custody. I was then in isolation because I wasn't able to be with the general population while I was in jail for 7 days. So imagine having nothing but these thoughts for 7 days. And then after that, I'm taken into house arrest, and I wasn't able to be with anybody. The only people I was able to stay with, I couldn't be around my daughter. So for 2 months, I wasn't able to speak to her or anything. They took me away from her. And obvious, that's normal because they had to do the investigation to make sure that I really wasn't gonna hurt her. And during that time, I had to stay at strangers' houses. So the only people that would let me stay at their houses were men, or these were men that I barely even knew. And I would stay on their couches, and they would like, oh, come sleep in the bed with me. And it was just, when you're vulnerable, the vultures really come out, And I didn't sleep with any of them. And after a month, it was always like clockwork. After about a month, they were like, okay, you have to find somewhere else to live, And I did it. so it was like that for like the next like 5 months. I stayed at like 5 different people's houses. One of them was a woman, thank God. But then, so, and I'm in the middle of that. Every couple of weeks I'm having to go to court. There's a bunch of like, it was like a scene from like the movies where like, there was always news cameras there up and down the hallway. I would have to walk in with like my head down. Then in the afternoon I was able to see myself on the news. It was a really insane time. I was facing 5 years in state prison. I had no idea what was gonna happen to me for those first 5 months. You know, it was, I wish I could say the day of the fire was February the 18th of 2016. And I wish I could say that that was the last time I took a drink, but it wasn't. I drank 4 more times after that because I just, the pain of it, you know, just, I wasn't going to the program, I was on house arrest, then I had the scram monitor, so I'm like double footing over here. And it was an intense time. But you know what? When Mother's Day came of May, my birthday is May 18th. Mother's Day was first, then it was my birthday. And then my mom didn't let me see my daughter either of those days. And I said, I was like, this is it. I said, I can't do this anymore. And I called my sponsor. I had a sponsor at the time. She had fired me twice because I had called her intoxicated twice. And I told her, I was like, I'll do anything. Like what you said, Jackie. I was like, I'll do anything, please. Anything. And she said, okay. And then we started doing the work. My sobriety day is May 28th of 2016. And it is definitely, again, by the grace of God, I'm standing here today that I get to be a mother. I love the relationship that I have with God, that I have the opportunity to have with Him every single day. Am I perfect? Absolutely not. I'm working on a lot of things, guys, to be better, And the thing is that I always thought like this perfection, and that's so unattainable, but if I could just be better than I was yesterday, you know, I'm conquering a lot. And I have this beautiful relationship with my daughter. I get to wake up next to her every single day. Although she told me she's kind of oversleeping next to me already. She's like, Mom! But it's just, the promises come true. And then in those, you know, I want to talk about Brad Pitt for a minute. I know that you guys are exhausted, but I wanted to mention Brad Pitt, AKA Russell Spatz. He, you know, I had attorneys, and then I had another set of attorneys while I was on probation. Well, I had one attorney, Nathan Clark. He's in Mississippi now. And then I had an assistant of his, lawyer Reid. She's another attorney. And while I was on probation, I had this scram monitor on, and I got 2 false violations. And when you get a violation while you're on probation, you have the potential of serving the rest of your time behind bars. So it was it was an exhausting time, the three, almost 2.5, 3 years that I was on probation and all that, because I was always like, you know, anything would set this thing off, because it picks up environmental alcohol. I mean, when you go to the gas station, there's anything that ends in OL and an ingredient, it's alcohol. So it's amongst us, everywhere. And one of those violations, it took me into custody immediately, and I had no idea that I even had a violation. And I called somebody from the program immediately, because I always told this one person in the program, a good buddy of mine, I told him, I was like, if anything ever happens, I will send you an emergency text, and you are to call Russell immediately, and get everybody from the program in, you know, just get everybody together. And when that happened, right before they cuffed me, I knew what was happening, I texted him, I was like, Russell. He calls Russell that night. And the next morning I come into the courtroom, and this was like a scene out of a movie. This is one of God's miracles in the program, and just everything. I'm there in my orange jumpsuit, and I'm in the back, and I walk in. So I'm going from the jail into the courtroom, you know, where all the inmates are sitting. And I walk in, and immediately it's like this room just full of people. Like imagine this church right now just full of people. And everybody that was there for me. It was not only people from my Alcoholics Anonymous, it was from Miami Vineyard, our church, Pastor Denzel, Pastor Paul, and a bunch of other attendees from the church as well that were there. I mean, everything was full. And I was just like, wow, you know? And then once everybody stands up when I walk in, the judge was already like, okay, I get it, you know, like sit down. I get who you're here for. And then at the end, Russell walks in. And I remember he walks in from like those back doors. He like just waltzes in this Russell fashion. And I'm sitting there like taking, like I'm just, I don't know, taking a crowd. And he just looks at me and he goes, and then he sits at the front where the judge looks at him and she's like, Russell? And then he's like, oh hey Terry. He's like, I'm here for Erica. He's like, I'm here to talk to her on her behalf. And then she's so confused, kind of borderline upset. And he just was there as a character witness, you know? And I felt the presence of the Holy Spirit that day in that courtroom. It was the most powerful thing. And just like there was that miracle, so many others have happened in my life. And I'm so grateful for, for everybody that spoke today and for Russell in my life and my recovery. In him, I've seen just so much love and so much service to so many people that are sick and suffering, me being one of them. And I continue to look at it. It's those that have walked before us that show us that it can be done. And I'm so grateful I'm humbled to be a part of this. I'm so grateful that Pastor Woody asked me to speak today. To be in this crew, it's so, so cool. And I would have never thought that I would have been. And I feel so blessed. And I would just tell the newcomer, just keep coming back. Even if you feel like the miracle hasn't happened yet, it will. And I wanted to share one thing. I read when I was going through my difficult time, there was this one verse that I read, and it holds true to my heart today. I have told you these things so that in me you may have peace. In this world you will have trouble, but take heart, I have overcome the world. John 16:33. And I'm super grateful for everybody, and God bless you, and thank you, Jesus Christ.
Okay. Erica, that was incredible. Thank you so much. In fact, everybody was incredible. Thank you so much. Again, as I said earlier today, there are only two things we own. There are only two things we own, and it's our attitude and our testimony.